So we have both of our groups this morning presenting. We had the middle schoolers went to Massanetta Springs to the youth conference that they have annually out in it's near Harrisonburg, Virginia. And our high schoolers went to Ghost Ranch out in Arizona. New Mexico. Thank you. That's where Albuquerque is. So the trips happened in the same week, so we had a lot of activity going on for a lot of our families at the same time. They were both amazing experiences, and we have our Massanetta crew to start with, and then we'll hear from the Ghost Ranch crew, and then at the end we'll have some time for questions for any of the groups or any of the folks that have talked. So,
Can we turn the lights down if they're
yes.
Terry's on it? Thank you. Perfect.
So, Massanetta.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, Sunny and I were the two chaperones for the group, and I think we had 7, it was 6 kids? 6 kids who... Yes,
Yeah.
and so 5 of us are here. And it was really kind of cool. So we left, I think it was on a Wednesday afternoon, and we drove to West Virginia, Charleston, West Virginia. I should know, I guess I was driving. So, it was really cool. We drove through Kentucky and you get to West Virginia. And a lot of the kids haven't been through there, but it's really neat. It's almost these rolling hills that are all squished together, almost like a Lorax movie or some Disney movie or something. But it was really neat. We got there, we stayed overnight at a hotel there. They had a really cool swimming pool. Kids really enjoyed. And then the next day we actually drove to Virginia. And Massanetta sits in the Shenandoah Valley. So if anybody's ever been in that area, it's an absolutely gorgeous spot. And I think James Madison University is right there. And we ended up going to Massanetta, and it's really interesting because when you drive up to Massanetta, you think that you're going to be out in the middle of the woods. Well, you're not. You're actually almost on the edge of a subdivision, which was kind of interesting in and of itself. But at Massanetta, they had a large hotel, I think that had been restored historically, and it's really a neat camp. You wouldn't even know that you're right there kind of in this area. They had a huge pond that had pontoon boats and all of these other things. And so when we arrived, there was actually a guy in a pink tutu who greeted us.
Massanetta!
Yeah.
He was like running around the car, and
He was chasing the
that's how they greeted everyone.
Yeah, so you could tell straight out of the gate this was going to be a good few days. And so we were there we arrived on Thursday, probably mid-afternoon or so, and then really the activities happened on Friday, Saturday, and then part of Sunday, and that's when we left on Sunday. So kind of with that, I'll kind of turn it over here, and I think maybe, Alexis, if you want to kind of read.
Okay, so this is the passage basically that we had been reading and discussing during the worship there, and it says, "Ask and it will be given you, search and you will find, knock and the door will be open for you. For everyone who asks receives, and everyone who searches finds, and for everyone who knocks the door will be open. Is there anyone among you who, if your child asks for bread, will give a stone, or if the child asks for a fish, will give a snake? If you then, who are evil, know how to give gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good things to those who ask him? And everything do to others as you would have them do to you, for this is the law and the prophets." And so kind of during our trip, we had different activities that basically discussed this theme. And so a few of the ones that I really enjoyed, and I know a lot of the other people here probably did too, was for one of them, it was about different movies that showed racism and things along those lines, and sexism and stuff in our culture and society. And it's basically saying how you can knock on God's door and be asking for him to help you with these things, but oftentimes humans can get in the way of this, and they can kind of disrupt what God has in store for us. And then another one that we did was about the different religions around the world, Islam and Judaism and other of those types of cultures and religions, and it basically discussed how they all have similar values and guidelines to what Christians have, and it's just the different ways in which they interpret it and stuff like that. And so I just thought it was really interesting because it shows that like we're all people of God and we all love God. It's just the different ways that we interpret it and things like that.
And so Lydia will kind of talk about kind of day in the life at Massanetta and kind of some of the things that we did from beginning of the day till the end.
So we started off in the morning. Usually you get up pretty early, like 7:45-ish, and you go to breakfast.
It's early, okay? I'm with them on this. Go with Lydia.
We eat breakfast, and we have a little free time to do what we wanted. Most of the time I was free, Foursquare, whatever. And then we go to worship. It'd be like a normal worship service, and did we have communion once?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, wasn't it like last day?
Yeah.
It was last day.
So yeah, basically your average church service. And then we go out to encounter groups with a bunch of different strangers.
And so you guys understand, the encounter groups were basically a way for the directors at the church to split everybody up so that you wouldn't stay within your own group. Instead, you'd be split between all the other campers. So really, I don't know if anybody in our group was ever with anybody else. All of our encounter groups were really with folks that we didn't know.
And then I think we had a little bit more free time, or we did an activity with our encounter groups. And then we had lunch, and then we had some more free time. And then we got back with our encounter groups and did another activity or something like that. And I think we had more free time. We had a lot of free time. And then we went to dinner, right? And then we went back up to, we did Kino, is that what it's called?
Yeah, it was,
And then you went to your hotel rooms, if you want to call it that, and you met up with your church groups, and you just talked about what you did that day in the encounter groups, like what God sightings you had, or whatever you thought was good about that day. And yeah,
So, Katie, did you want to talk a little bit about some of the activities that we did?
Sure. Well, so every day, so this is like the place we went into, and all of this was like open. So then you just like feel like you're outside, but you're actually inside, and it's just like really nice. And so every day after you went in with your groups, you went to a workshop, and they were all about different things like racism and just like God knocking at the door and things like that. And so yeah, it was just really fun and interesting. And each group went to different workshops every day. So like most of us, I think a few of us went to a group workshop like number 7, but there's only, I think it was me and Alexis, right? Okay, but most of the time we had different things to talk about, so it was really good to hear about what each of us.
And then they also had some maybe field day activities. I don't know if Luke, you want to talk a little bit about those?
So basically, they had a bunch of different activities set up. Like there was like a Foursquare, there was like volleyball style, and then they had face painting, and so you see people walking around like face painting and stuff. And then you also had crazy hair, so people had like cups in their hair, and different color of hair, like pink and stuff, and green. And then, so they also had like, I don't know what it's called, but it's like, what's it
Oh, yeah, I think they had like a
Like a
giant parachute thing.
yeah.
Yeah, it was a parachute.
Yeah, so they had a lot of fun activities. They had this giant slip and slide that you could use. I don't know if they had, did they have any water balloons? Or, I don't know.
No, I don't.
They had face painting, but they did an excellent job of really engaging the kids in different types of activities. And I would almost say that you had obviously the free time activity, you had the spiritual activities, you had really the thought-provoking activities, and then you really had these physical activities that really, kids of all, types or, where could engage in. And that was really what was neat. I know Lydia said there was a lot of free time. I don't remember there being that much free time. morning we woke up,
Like hours,
2.5
that
hours.
was free time for 2.5.
After
Like,
lunch.
what?
After
Yeah,
lunch.
it's just
There was so many
No,
things to
yeah.
eat.
And I know that there definitely wasn't that much free time because I remember I would always nap in between it, and there was not enough time for me to nap nearly.
I thought there was
I know,
an average, a good amount of free time.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else we have going on. There was a lot of Foursquare play within this group right here, right?
And
I think it was part of their
and
comfort.
there was also a lot of Foursquare against like other churches and stuff, and we were very competitive. There was no group that I think stayed for more than like a few rounds because they were done with us with all the getting out that we would constantly be getting them out and they were done.
Yeah, they had some dirty tricks too, like the rest of them did. Like they would just like they do black magic or whatever, cherry bombs. I don't, and like it was horrible. Like,
We're getting rather deep in the weeds on Foursquare. Yes.
Did you get to choose your workshops?
no.
No, you did.
Yes.
You did. So before we actually went there, you actually had to sign up.
Those who read the fine print.
Yes, I remember that.
Mom and Dad made him sign up for the shops for some of the kids. So.
Yeah, the workshops were based on different, well, they're like different topics. So I always pick the artsy ones and the theatery ones, and then there's some that are more, I don't know, like less abstract. So the workshops were designed for different interests and different types of intelligences. So the really great thing about that, which is what they're all getting at, is that we had the scripture verse, but then we had all these different ways that you lived it out and worked through it and rethought it. And we were all in, some of us, Katie and I ended up in the same workshops a couple of times, and they were awesome. But so we all had some different ones, so then in the evening when we get together, we got to share about the different ways that we had talked about the scripture and the different ways, that we had been encouraged to think about it throughout the day. So that was a really cool and, added a lot of richness to the experience.
And I know the kids probably forget some of this stuff, but the two of the workshops, because both Sunny and I were involved in the same activities the kids did, which is maybe why I don't remember the free time as much. But the two workshops that I remember being involved with, one was on prayer, and it talked about the different ways in which you can pray. I mean, everybody thinks of a very formal setting and that type of thing, but it doesn't need to be. It can be in the form of meditation. It can be in the form of, sitting in the car or, on the beach or, in church, all of those different ways in which you can really interact and encounter God. And then another one that both Alexis and I were in, because they would combine encounter groups, was one on religion and the different types of religion throughout the world. And it was really neat because the theme of the entire week was really this golden rule and this idea that you want to do unto others as they've done to you type thing. Well, really, when you look at a lot of the different religions around the world, it's kind of centered around that same theme. And Alexis really enjoyed that. She enjoys that type of activity in terms of understanding the social aspects of it. So I think there were different ways in which we all connected and really kind of encountered the world and things around us.
And also with that activity, it was also kind of about realizing that there are parts of a religion or something that might seem or appear as though they're violent, but the reality of it is that everyone, the majority of those people have those values, and just understanding and learning about different cultures and accepting them and not judging them based on the actions of a few people.
And I would say that the one other item there is, you're thinking about this kind of from a theory perspective in terms of religion and that type of thing. But really, as far as the real interaction, it was really great to see kids from all over the country there and really kind of interact with them. It makes the world a little smaller, when you really get to interact and see that, kids are basically the same. It doesn't matter where you're from, and a lot of the views and things are very, very common.
One thing we could say too is that an awful lot of this is run by teen helpers. There are teams of teens who work there for a couple of weeks each, and some are on a team for recreation, and some are on a team for doing things in worship. They did skits and different theater-y type things and presentations to make worship really interesting. And so there were all these different groups. The teens led the encounter groups that we were, as adults, we were part of it, but the teens led it. And the teens were having a really good experience as well. And this is something that I just thought I'd pass on, because if any of our teens ever were interested in doing something like that, I believe that one of the adults told Lydia that they thought she would make a really good, they call them advocates, but it's like a team leader. But it seemed like a good opportunity for teens, and it also seemed like the middle schoolers really enjoyed having those teens as leaders of all their different activities.
I feel like we could relate more to them because I know they're a few years older than us, but they're closer to our age than an adult would be, and I feel like they just kind of get that experience because several of them said they had been through Massanetta themselves, so I felt like they could just connect to us on a personal level.
You said you had a lot of strangers, and where did these other people come from?
A lot of them came from North Carolina or Virginia. Some came from Florida. I think there was one other group who came from Indy, but it was mainly just like locals, or like most of the groups were from Virginia or from around Massanetta, but
And
yeah,
all
and
middle
then Carolina.
Yeah. Yeah, they do 4 weeks of the same conference, or at least 4 weeks of it, with different groups of middle schoolers that come in. So as soon as we were done, they had another group of middle schoolers arriving that afternoon. And I think it's a couple hundred at least in each session. So our session that we attended was completely full. As you can see in the pictures from worship, how many folks were packed in this building. But yeah, so that's all middle schoolers, and then all the adults who are awesome enough to go with them. And so a lot of folks are from Virginia and like the surrounding nearby states, but people had come from much farther away, like we had from Florida, from kind of the general southeast area of the country. So it's a pretty good mix of people that you got to hear from very different churches sometimes and from very similar churches.
And I would note that this particular building was not air conditioned. And the first night we were there, I think it must have been 90 plus degrees while we were there. And I thought I might actually melt right there on the spot. But God must have been looking over us, because the next 2 days it was absolutely gorgeous. It was 70 degrees, and it was wonderful. So it was really kind of interesting. It just shows, you kind of go through these ups and downs, or ebbs and flows in terms of all parts of life, and it was really neat. I know that personally I was a little apprehensive about the trip as I was climbing in the van with a bunch of middle schoolers over the next 4 days. But at the end of the day, I mean, it was a cool experience, and I think all the kids here really probably enjoyed it more than they probably thought they would.
Yeah. Any final closing thoughts from anybody?
I think it was the most fun because, as Dan said, it was really fun, like climbing into a van with springers or whatever, however old we are. But I think it was also really fun because a lot of times it was just us girls, and we had this one night on the hotel, and at the hotel it was really fun because it was Katie, Gabby, Macy, and I. And we all just climbed into one bed and we watched a movie, and it was a really scary movie that I had seen. And they were all like clinging on to like, oh, what's gonna happen? And I think that it was just a really fun night that night because we really had fun.
It was a good bonding experience. Bonding over Foursquare and defeating every other church there.
Just to be clear, Luke and I were wondering what's going on in that other room. And Alexis was there too, so it was, yeah, we had two different experiences that night. I think Luke was completely asleep, but Alexis and I at least were.
Okay, thank you all. Okay, Ghost Ranch.
Okay. I think there were 16, was it 16 kids and then adults too? I can't remember anymore. David Boatwright, Kelly, me, Angie Meyer, my husband Danny were the adults. Marietta was with us for the first part of the week, and all of these kids and then some. It's good to see some of our oldest ones. I know Luke and others are already off to school, so that's exciting. I'm not sure what else to say in terms of introduction. Maybe if we go on to the next slide. Do you want to talk about that one? Oh, yeah, Kelly was in charge of that.
Yeah, so we had a safe flight into Albuquerque and then got rental vans and drove an hour north to Santa Fe. And I just went on TripAdvisor to find a little restaurant to go to. This was a really cute place called Sonder, and which I really like the whole saying of Sonder, and what that is, the realization that every random passerby is living a life as vivid and complex as your own. More to that, but it was a good place, and we had some good local foods, and then we went on and drove up to Ghost Ranch, about another hour.
So what you see here is us working on trails. A lot of the trails in Ghost Ranch were covered in weeds and other beautiful plants.
You were really pretty.
And so we spent, our whole week was based off cleaning out the weeds and doing other fun projects along those lines. How many trails did we finish?
I don't want to interrupt Montez, but I should have said in the way of introduction, we were part of a program Ghost Ranch does called Youth Service Corps. So it was a week designed for youth groups to come out and do service work at the ranch and off the ranch. So when we were on the ranch doing service work, this area, I mean, there was no path in some of this place. I mean, some of it was so bad. It was just, they were like, oh, there's a path here, and we couldn't even see it. It was a lot of hot manual labor, and Montez loved it.
So with the idea of putting out weeds, there was this volleyball court here. If you look at the bottom left picture, it was completely unused and it was covered in weeds. So we weeded using a variety of large hand tools, like I'm not really sure what to call half of them, but we used them. We covered the weeded ground with gravel and sand, and we lined the perimeter with stones, and now it is a functioning volleyball court.
We took this really cool Kitchen Mesa hike at the end of the week.
You want to talk about yours?
Okay, so while we were there, some of our free time, we went on a lot of hikes because it's just such a beautiful area and there's a lot of mesas to hike on. So a couple of these pictures are from later in the week when a few of us went on the Kitchen Mesa Trail, which is a 3-hour hike. So we had to do a little bit of bouldering up this kind of steep, little, I don't know. And we had to kind of climb all over the rocks and I don't know, it's just a really great experience. And even though it's hot, once you get up there, it's just a beautiful view of Ghost Ranch and just the mountains surrounding it. But I think all of us went on hikes at some point during our stay there, and we really enjoyed them. But yeah, this is another hike we went on. This is Kitchen Mesa down on the left there. One of the fun times we went to the lake and we kayaked and canoed, which was up on the left. I think this is the Matrimonial Trail, so just a few of the hikes that we went on while we were there.
This is the only group picture we have of all of us.
In the upper left at the lake. It was such a cool, serene lake, and we went there around sunset, and it was beautiful.
On the right, that's me sitting. I had a lot of time there to think and look.
Before we go to the next slide, I have to say, we all bonded, we all had spiritual moments, but William and Ben Stenner emerged as real spiritual leaders. Ben can play it down, but we called him Pastor Ben. He is sitting up there alone by the cross because he was our leader in devotions almost every night. His prayers were very direct and to the point and simple. But the first night he led the devotions, he said something very short and ended with, and now we're here, pause, an opportunity. And I tell you, that really connected with us over the rest of the trip. And William's prayers, if you're ever in a group with William Stenner, encourage him to volunteer the prayer. I tell you what.
Okay, so going on with more like hiking things, like the first thing we did there was on a hike, and we just saw the really pretty mesas and stuff. That's a picture on the left. And we went on like different hikes. We went to Box Canyon, Chimney Rock, Kitchen Mesa, all those places. And we have a story about Montez. He was really struggling to get up the mountain. Well, not mountain, but hill and stuff. So we were
It was
trying to go down. He was really struggling, and we helped him out.
Well, we did go on the Chimney Rock hike, and I kid you not even 10 steps in, I was already tired, ready to go back. And I mean, I did hikes before Chimney Rock, but let me tell you something about that.
But he made it to the top.
Yeah.
He got up there. And it was pretty.
I had a very memorable moment. It was when, 1/8 of the way up, the group started cheering me on, and it was very emotional. And when we got to the top, we didn't even hug it out. We just kind of sat together and listened
to the wind. The leaders there were really big into sitting down at the top of Mountain or at the end of a hike and just listening to all the sounds that nature gives us. So a lot of times, when we reached the peak or whatever, we would just sit there for 5 minutes and just listen to everything and just kind of appreciate the stuff that we don't normally get to appreciate.
Yeah, it was amazing, just looking out and seeing all the land that you could possibly see.
You could even hear the wind hitting against the mountains.
Exactly.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Oh, is this one? Yeah.
I'll let the kids tell a little about this too, but this was my favorite day. We went into El Rito, and it was a neighboring community from Ghost Ranch. I just wanted to say Rico or something, I don't know. Anyway, and we were ready to work. We were really ready to build a house or paint a house or remodel a house. Surely somebody in this community needed us to accomplish this big, hard, manual labor kind of task. And when we got there, what they really wanted us to do was make Christmas ornaments out of clay and make things out of paper mache for a festival and a parade that they were having. And at first the kids were like, but where's my hammer? And I'm ready to paint. And we wanted to really dig in. And it was Luke at lunch who said, and I think it's up there, and I may not have captured his exact words, but he said, I think what my takeaway from today is sometimes you go on a mission trip with this idea of what you want to do for other people. But this is what they wanted us to do. Luke's point was sometimes you need to do what they're inviting you, what they think they need, not what you think they need. And I don't know if we all completely, if we could have changed anything about the trip, it might have been more hard work side by side with people in need. But this was a part of their culture, and this parade that they were doing was a way of remembering their heritage. And we learned about that too. That affected me a lot because there was a building in El Rito, or church, that had been built in 1400. And I was like, 1400? Wait, people didn't get to this country until the Mayflower and the Pilgrims in the 1600s. And it made me realize how much of my concept of America and American history is British. is the English experience of settlers when people were living in, that's America too, in 1400 on the other side of the country. So there were some eye-opening moments while we were in El Rito like that. The kids could tell you if they made, what they made.
Someone remember? Yeah, you tell me. So basically, the ornaments we were making were for the Christmas trees in Washington DC for this winter because the Carson National Forest was chosen as the place where they would get the Christmas tree to put on the mall, National Mall. So that's what we were making. They needed like 10,000 ornaments from New Mexico, or like from this area, and so we were helping them make ornaments for these trees. So it wasn't like just ornaments, like this was like a big deal for them, and their forest was chosen for this tree, and so that's why we're doing that.
So we want to talk about this.
Sure. Okay, so this is really cool. There was a well, it's an anthropology museum, and there was a ton of different dinosaurs there. But this woman is like, she like actively digs still like every other day, and she actually got out this bone that was 220 million years old and like handed it to us. And she's like, I'm really not supposed to be doing this, but I'm the director, so it doesn't really matter. And we got to like hold the bone, so that was really crazy. And then she was talking about how she had actually, her boss had like told her to go back to the like their camp and get some glue, and on the way back she found a new species of dinosaur. And so so that was really cool to talk to her about that, because she like was crazy smart, knew all this stuff, so it was just like giving out so many facts. But oh my gosh, it was amazing. And then this is like, they still are actively digging on this, so like they'll take out a chunk at a time. But that was in the museum, so you could like actually see, where they get their stuff from, and so it's super cool.
Yeah, there were a few of us who stayed. She gave us a tour of the anthropology stuff, and then there's a paleontology museum too. And so there's an active dig site still happening, but she gave us very specific directions that we could go to across all the chains and the path and everything, where they're still actively digging. But this piece that you see that they brought into the museum is the section of rock that she discovered this new species in. So like Andy said, this kind of not super great guy sent her on a really menial task, which she never should have been sent on. And while she's doing that, she discovered an entire new species. So when she like jumped over this to show us like where that bone goes and how she figured out that it's it looks like some other species that we've seen, but she explained how it's different. She got to name it and all of this, and then after that, the director of all of that helped her go on to get her, further degrees and all of that. So she's now in charge of this dig. So it was incredible to not only hold, that's what Maddie and we're passing around here, she just passed these, multi-million-year-old species around for us to hold in our hands. So it was a very, very personal experience of something that, like when we say ancient, like even that is not even an accurate description of how old these things were. So I loved how she took extra time. There were a group of us that stayed another couple hours and talked to her more about all these specifics. So she was very gracious, and I have never met anybody that could make that ancient of bones and rocks and everything like come to life for us. So that was an incredible experience to think about. And to think about the layers of history, not just the layers of like more recent settlements and cultural history, but to think of all the history that's happened in this place that we were.
Oh, also the guy that told her to get glue got hired by her to help her dig.
I forgot.
Brennan's wearing his today.
Oh,
Yeah, Brennan is displaying his shirt.
Okay, so this is like the very end of our trip. So for all the youth service corps groups that come through, the like college staff leaders, will like make us. We like participated in a color exchange, so we had like bottles of like tie-dye and we wore white shirts and we just like basically just ran around squirting this on each other. But it was really fun. I don't know, just another way to bond. But
Is this me? If you want to. There's more, there's this slide and that one. So that's the storm time. So that's right. But this is before that.
Should I talk about this?
Yeah.
Okay. So, you guys saw earlier us taking care of the pathways, and then this is us. I don't know what they're doing, but this is our group.
We're walking to the site.
Oh, are we?
yeah, so we walked from the main camp area over to the high ropes course where we were working. So that's what this picture is.
So what you see over here, right there, we're working on the low ropes course, and we're trying to create, or we were creating a game for the kids to play. So it's those tile cement block thingies, cinder blocks, thank you, and blocks of wood, and the kids would like walk across the cylinder box. Someone else explain this, please.
Basically, the low ropes course is just like a ton of different obstacle courses that were a little bit lower in the room. There was a high ropes course too, but that was like 20 feet up. So these were just different things that we were helping clean up. So we were picking up the weeds on the trails so we could get to the different obstacle courses. We were refurbishing some of them. So like in this one, we were painting the blocks and burying them, stuff like that, to kind of help encourage more people to come and like want to do these. So.
And I remember what I want to say is the college kids were so impressed, and we get this, I think, whenever this group goes somewhere, but we had this terrible storm one day, and we had other things scheduled the next day, and the college kids said, well, we won't finish the low ropes course. That was not something we really expected to get completely done this week. Just leave it. It doesn't have to be done. And that just wasn't okay with these kids and some of their leaders. And twice, they had opportunities when it could have been free time. And groups went out and finished the job. And we weren't going to leave until it was done. And even on our free day, the last day we were there, we were out making sure all of the work on the Little Roads course was done. Just because if we're going to do a project, we're going to do it well and we're going to finish it. So it made us proud of the kids.
Also with this, going off the ring. So the first day, there was a group of kids going out on a hike, and then there was a separate group who just. Did you say Danny forced us to go the first day? He forced us to go. We were all mad.
Oh no, that's because you guys didn't go on horseback.
No, we did go on the horse.
we did take kind of like a preview hike the first day, some of us. I think that's what Montez is just kind of exploring around where our cabin was, which by the way, every single day we had to climb up and down to get to where we were sleeping, which was quite a exercise in and of itself. But and then we went, I think it was the second day we went on this matrimonial hike in the evening. And then in the picture I had of Sydney and I, if you see the whole picture, you can see the storm clouds coming in. We had no idea what kind of storms they hit New Mexico because we were, a lot of us were coming off that mountain and this storm, and it was wind and all the sand, and it felt like these pellets coming at you. And I'm sitting here, the cell coverage isn't very good, their cell service, so I'm sitting here trying to we're trying to call and text Danny, come get us, because we were like in the middle of the storm, and that's kind of a picture on the upper left of that, but it was quite the experience, just the kind of sandstorms they had.
Yeah, there was a group of us that had not gone on a hike, and so we were, go ahead, you're going to tell them.
Yeah, a group of us were working at the time, and we drove down there to the low ropes course, and we saw the rain like coming and it was a lot easier to work then because it was hot. So we got like a lot more done. And the college kids were really impressed with how much work we got done. And on the way back, we picked all of them up while it was raining and all the sand was hitting them really hard.
When we were working, we could see like the sky was kind of split in two. On one side it was super dark and like cloudy, you could tell that it was raining, and then you looked to the other side and it was like perfectly clear skies. And so we went in the minivan and we were going to go back to the cabin, and we saw all of these guys, and they were like, Bill Meyer was like bent over trying to cover his head with his hat because there was so much sand and like rain and everything.
So we fit like 12 people in one of our minivans. Yeah, to get back. We picked up some people that worked at the
There were a
camp.
couple people that we picked up
Yeah.
over there, and they got out, and we got more people in.
It was quite big.
Did you create the ropes course? Was it your idea how to do it?
No, so they have it all planned out. I've actually been there to New Mexico before to this, and they've had it before. We were just doing like refurbishing, just like the same with volleyball, just so people could come and use it and like have something to do there.
They've had some really rough weather, so a lot of the trails and the low ropes and the high ropes, all of that stuff had kind of just become overgrown, and the rocks that marked the paths had kind of gotten scattered. So it was a lot of like just pulling things back together that they have had, but they haven't fully been able to use because they have been in rough conditions. We're talking about treasure hunt, maybe? Who was going to talk about that?
So we went to Albuquerque, and I think it's
Abiquiu. It was Abiquiu. It was just the 45 minutes.
Oh, Albuquerque, I'm sorry. And as you can see, the two photos on the side, this guy had us do this scavenger hunt, and you had to use a phone and this piece of paper to like map your way around this big garden area. And let me tell you, it was really confusing for all the groups to understand and wrap their heads around, because it's like a new game that he's trying to fix up and have other groups play in the future. But the main idea is to work together and put your heads together and work find stuff as a team. But there is majority of the groups decided to have a leader, a person who knew what they were trying to do and knew how to navigate their way around things. So it was really difficult and a learning experience.
So essentially, this was a game that they had created to help people learn about the culture there. So you get to unlock different clues to figure out like what the real history of the site was, or what the real art, different pieces of their culture that had kind of been miseducated on them. And so we were part of like the experimental group going through it. So they had a lot of stuff that they were still trying to work out, and we just needed groups to come and be like, okay, this is a little bit confusing, maybe you can clarify that, but overall it's really fun. It was really cool. Once you figure out how to do that, it's a little confusing.
In the middle picture, that's where we sat to do our devotions each night. So we had a really great view of that's kitchen base up there, but yeah, so that's just us, discussing our day, and, God sightings and that sort of thing.
We're going to talk about smaller time energizers and chapel.
So every morning we would go down by the cafeteria and we would have this thing called energizers. It's basically talk a little bit about your experience there, and you dance to get your body moving and ready to go to work.
And the picture on the right is a picture of sports dog riding. It was a Georgia O'Keeffe tour type of thing. We got to see where she got her inspiration from. Lots of different pictures. It was like a 2-hour thing.
Yeah, I gotta say that was one of my absolute favorite things that we did, and we divided into 2 groups. So this was the group of 4 of us that went early in the week. so that I was very gracious so that I could go, because I left on Thursday morning to fly out to Virginia to catch up with all these folks. So the landscape tour was incredible, and the horse trail is the only way that you can access this land. There are no hiking trails. There is a bus tour that goes through some of those sites too, but the way the horse trail went, we couldn't even see the bus trail from where we were. So just the experience of being out there where George O'Keeffe had painted so many paintings, that we've kind of seen around, had a whole new appreciation for them, because even as we were riding, like the lights changing, the clouds are moving, when it rained, all the scenery changed colors. So I could see why she painted the same places over and over again, because from one minute to the next, they look completely different. So I felt like, for me anyway, it was a very spiritual experience to be able to be out in this untouched land that nobody else can get to. And they talked about too, and this is part of why restoring the trails and marking them was so important, because it takes so long for plants to grow in this environment. Since it's a desert, they don't have, a ton of rainfall and leaves fall down and cover the ground so new little plants can grow. So it's an entirely different ecosystem, and it's very delicate. So if you go off the trail and start stomping around, it can take, what did they say? Dozens of years, hundreds of years in some cases, for the natural plant life and everything to come back. So that's part of why the trails are so important, but also getting to go out in this area was incredible, because there's so much land that hadn't been touched. You could really see, it felt like to me what God's original creation looked like. And I spent quite a bit of time thinking about how much we get in the way of that. And like everybody has already said, how many amazing views, and how in this area, even the rock formations could be so different from one area to another. It was absolutely incredible.
I just want to say, we spent 2 weeks at Ghost Ranch in July, and we were in a group with Kate, who was the coordinator for the Youth Service Corps, I believe. And she looked at me and she said, "You're from Columbus, from First Pres?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "I just want you to know that youth group was just absolutely awesome." And she named several of them. And she was just so impressed by how hard they worked and how much they did. So that really felt good.
For sharing it. Do you have any final thoughts from the group? Anybody wants to share? We have a few more minutes if there are any other questions for Massanetta or for Ghost Ranch.
Two things. One, I just wanted to say thank you to all of the prayer partners who sent us notes, things like that. It really does make a difference. I read those notes. To remember that somebody's thinking about you. It's interesting. You end up in these places that are not your home. And so you're literally kind of taken out of your element, and it is nice to sort of connect back and the church. And then the only other thing I was going to make a comment to is really how valuable I think these experiences are, as far as for both the middle school and the high school. A lot of these experiences, although obviously we're trying to do things for other people or for the communities, the impact to us is quite huge. Life is just kind of this tapestry of experiences that you will remember for the rest of your life and kind of shape you in terms of how you do things. And I think shrinking the world and really kind of, seeing kind of the God's beauty and all of that really is just a wonderful way to, kind of push people out into the world and be able to draw on those experiences. So this is really impactful.
Does somebody want to close us in prayer?
No. You even have a microphone here.
I'll pass it again.
Yes.
Thank you all for being here today. It's great to remember all these wonderful times we had over the summer. Amen.